Anna, my late wife, died in a car accident. A person lost control of their car, ran her over, and she passed away immediately. We were both 26 at the time. It was 4 years ago, right before the pandemic. We were having a bad time as a couple. She was extremely jealous of me and very protective of her phone. Shortly after her death, I found out I had an STD, and surprise, surprise, she was cheating on me. On the day she passed, a guy we went to college with and were kind of friends with sent her messages asking for pictures of their last encounter. The way he talked, it seemed like it was recent, and it seemed that they talked often. I was able to get into her phone and laptop, as she didn't change her passwords because she would always ask to check my phone, and I would ask for hers back. So I had the password. There wasn't much because she deleted everything or hid it very well, but the most recent messages, she obviously couldn't delete them, so everything that came after her death was still there. While looking for the pictures he asked for, I found pictures of her and him in a rare deep in a random place at her work folders on her laptop. In one of them, she had short hair, which she only had right after we got engaged, so she was with him for at least 3 years out of our 6 years together. Also, I found pictures of 2 other guys, but I have no idea who they are, and there were no messages from either of them anywhere. I messaged the friend and told him that I knew, told him about the STD, and that I wouldn't reveal it to anyone and wanted it to be kept a secret forever. I asked him if anyone else knew, and he said that his ex knew, but he would talk to her. I decided that for the sake of her parents and siblings, I would pretend she was a great person and let them have their beautiful memories with her. Anna's older brother, Thomas, is a good friend of mine to this day. I would even go as far as to say we are best friends. After 2 years of my wife's passing, I was ready to date again. Thomas said that he knew the perfect girl for me. He just wanted me to be sure I was ready for something serious before introducing each other. It was his sister-in-law, Laura. We knew each other only superficially, but never really talked before our first date. I fell for her quick and hard. We started dating, and about 3 months in, we were already telling each other I love yous, and I told her I was going to marry her. It has been a little less than 2 years. We are engaged, and I have never been this happy. I told her all about my relationship with Anna. I still have the evidence of what she did stored away on my computer just in case, and I showed it to Laura. She cried a little and comforted me, but I assured her I was fine and that I was over it. The problem comes with Anna's family, especially her mom and sister. Ever since Anna's passing, every time they talk about her, people want to hear me talk. They ask me about her, try to include me in conversations about her. Anna was such a good cook, right? I loved when she and you would banter. You remember? Stuff like this. I was able to get by in the beginning by saying it was difficult for me to talk about her, that I was not ready. They let me be for a while, but ever since I started dating Laura, I couldn't use the "I'm not ready" excuse. Her friends, sister and mom get annoyed if I don't sound enthusiastic or depressed, learn that it's easier to look depressed. Also, if I talk about Anna in any way that isn't portraying her as an angel that came down to earth to bless us with her presence, I get side-eyed. Thankfully, Thomas and her father are great guys and don't push me too hard on this. Her dad is always thankful that I attend their family gatherings, as we like to talk about our field of work. He always says he considers me a son. Her mom and sister, though, get pissy if I try to dodge the topic of Anna, and the sister even said it out loud once that it's obvious that I didn't love Anna. She apologized after, but I mean, she isn't wrong. By the end, I didn't, and sure as hell don't now. Look, I'm over what happened. I don't feel hate for Anna anymore. I sometimes catch myself wishing she was alive just so I didn't have to pretend anymore, but also because her death was a tragedy. A lot of people loved her. Her friends organize a reunion for her birthday, and those are incredibly hard. And even though I know her AP will be there, I go because I know how much she meant to those people. But this is all starting to get to me because it's affecting Laura. I can't say I love her in front of these people. I can't even hug her. And Anna's sister gets all moody. Her best friend stopped speaking to Laura. They were also friends. Anna's mom even came to us at Thomas's birthday party last week, and asked us to stop dancing to respect her grief. She also contacted my mom and Laura's parents to say that she was incredibly disappointed that I proposed to Laura so soon, saying that we are moving too fast. It's been 4 years. Even if she wasn't a cheater, more than enough time has passed. I'm just over it, and I'm seriously considering telling all of them what happened, just to get the weight off my back. Now for some comments. When asked how his late wife was protective of her phone, OP said, "Was also confused about it for a long time. My best guess is that she only had her blow-ups when she hid everything and deleted the messages. So she was ready to give it to me, knowing it was clean. I never asked in other scenarios, only when she asked to see mine. Same for the computer." When asked about going low contact with Anna's parents, OP replied, "I don't have much family. My sister lives far away. My dad passed. It's only my mom, and my extended family also lives where my sister lives. Like I said, Thomas is my best friend, and he is Laura's brother-in-law. Laura's family and Anna's are really close. They even do some holidays together. Other than Thomas and his wife, there is also a cousin of Anna's that is married to Laura's older brother. It's a bit of a mess, but both families are tight, so it's almost impossible to not be in their lives." Now for the 1.5-month update. Hello again. Sorry for not replying to most of you. There were too many comments, and I wasn't able to respond to many. Thank you so much for caring, though. I had used Reddit for advice on a work-related issue in the past, and it was helpful. I feel like it came through again. Only updating because I received so many DMs asking for it, and I hate when I read something and it has no resolution. And as I think there is no harm in doing it, here I am. Something that I want to add because I didn't feel it was relevant before. But seeing so many people saying so many mean things about Anna made me feel like it's relevant, just for some people to understand how I feel about her. Maybe it isn't relevant, but I feel like saying it and putting it out there. Anna loved me. She really did. She wasn't some monster that wanted me to be miserable and make me a fool. I saw the way she talked about me to other people. She loved me. She was worried I would divorce her and was talking to people about how to turn around our marriage, how to put it back on track. The issue was that she had a kink, and I absolutely had no desire to partake in it. She asked a couple times, once early in the relationship and another time after we got married, and I refused unequivocally both times and was particularly judgmental about it. All the pictures I found were of her in those kink scenarios. So yeah, she was sexually frustrated and used those men to satisfy her kink. But she loved me. She was just very selfish, dumb, and reckless. I really believe this. And I say all of this because she was a really terrible wife. She cheated on me for years because of a kink. But she was not a terrible person. She was only a terrible partner. There is a reason so many people loved her so much. I went with my gut feeling of talking to Thomas. It seems like a lot of people came to the same conclusion, that this was the best way to deal with this. Laura and I went to his house, and we talked to him and his wife, Laura's sister. I told them that I was only bringing this up now because mine and Laura's lives are being affected by the way people perceive me as Anna's husband. People want me to be a memory of her life, when in reality, being reminded that I was married to her felt like a gut punch, and I'm at my limit. But I kept on trying because I love her family, and I know how much she meant to many people. I told them that I did not love the person she became when she died, that we were probably headed for divorce soon, even without the things I learned. The only reason I didn't share it with anyone was because I didn't see a point in tarnishing her memory and changing people's perception of her when it wouldn't matter to anyone, and it would only bring pain to those that loved her. Now, though, this decision is biting me in the butt because I also have to act like she was perfect. The reason I told them this way was so they could opt in to knowing more if they wanted. But if they would rather stay ignorant to the situation, they could. Thomas wanted to know everything, so I told them. He asked to see the proof, and I told him that the pictures were intimacy and graphic. It was not a good idea for him to see it. He asked his wife to see them. I showed it to her, and she confirmed to him that it was real, and they were really bad. She actually flinched looking at them. He asked if it was only one time. I told him it was with 3 different guys, and one of them went on for at least 3 years that I knew of. He was mad, cussed a lot, not at me, but at the situation. I started to regret everything at that point. He said, "Fuck, why is she so freaking stupid?" He called Anna stupid a bunch of times. He asked for some time to think stuff over and went out. I left Laura and her sister talking and also went on a drive. About an hour later, Thomas called me and asked me to come back to his house. He and Monica gave me a hug. She was crying a lot. He asked me what I wanted to do. I told him that all I want is to move on from this and be happy with Laura. He told me that he would handle his mom and sister, that I didn't need to worry about them anymore, but I should just distance myself from his family and Anna's friends for a while. He said, I'm his brother, and that will never change. We all hugged it out, and that was it. My ex-Il has since reached out and told me that she knew Anna was cheating on me, but thought we were working through it. Anna told her about a year before she died and said that she would come clean and try to work on the marriage. Now Thomas has told her what happened, and she has apologized a lot. She said that she has been basically ignoring her flaws ever since she died, but it has turned unhealthy for both her and her mom. She said she will help me with anything I need regarding this topic. Ex-FEL and mother-in-law don't know anything, and we will keep it that way. I will try to make time to hang out with my father-in-law from time to time, and considering he and my new father-in-law are good friends, Thomas and I have been talking about taking them fishing, golfing, maybe just going to a bar, stuff like that, at least once a month. And as for my ex-MIL, I just keep my interactions to a minimum. So yeah, I think it worked out well. Another thing is that Laura wants to speed up our wedding planning, so hopefully we will get married in March or April. Before, we were talking about having a long engagement, but there is no point in waiting. We both know what we want, and I'm happy, very happy. Now for a few important comments. One commenter asked, "You do not have to respond," and I guess you kept it vague on purpose, but what was the kink? Because most times you see people disgusted with their partners when something like this happens, and you seem very, calm? The original poster replied, "Yeah, I won't say what it was, but let's just say she did stuff to the guy, not the other way around." Honestly, the guys in the pictures looked pathetic, and if those were to leak, they would be the ones ridiculed, not me. The AP that I talked to was desperate when I told him I had pictures. That made it 10 times easier for me to move on. I would say this was better than if she had a normal affair, at least for my mental health. Then another commenter said, "Thomas is a good dude. Please, you and Laura live your best lives together." Am I the idiot for feeling betrayed by my boyfriend for hiding his Korean fluency from me for 3 years? I've been with Jimmy for 3 years now. We first met in college and pretty much instantly hit it off. I'm full Korean while he's half Korean, even though he doesn't look like it at all. I was slightly disappointed when I found out that he didn't speak Korean. Pretty much everyone in my family speaks it, so more than anything, I thought it would be an issue. But it wasn't. He told me that he didn't know it, but he was studying it, which I thought was a nice gesture. He met my parents for the first time, and they speak English but prefer not to speak it much. My parents complained to me pretty much the entire night and even badmouthed him quite a bit because of his actions and not understanding. I didn't know at the time, but I really defended him, and although most dinners at my parents' house were them being fake nice to him, I tried my best to stick up for him. The first time my parents met his dad and his sister, they spoke very poorly of them. It was downright insulting. His dad had some pretty rude/weird behavior that was frowned upon. I would always talk with my parents on the phone while we lived on campus, often on speakerphone, and Jimmy would just kind of play dumb. Even with my friends, many of them were very rude to him after I told them he didn't understand it. He proposed to me at our favorite park 3 months ago in Korean, and I was so blown away by it. I thought it was the sweetest thing in the world. I cried for joy and happily accepted. I was so proud of him. Fast forward to last week, one of Jimmy's old-time friends had returned from his assignment overseas and met us for dinner. Really nice and respectable guy. And he's talking and just full-blown starts speaking in Korean to Jimmy. And I'm taken back. Oh, he doesn't know much. He's still learning. The guy scratches his head and goes, Jimmy is the guy who helped teach me Korean. What are you talking about? And at first, I didn't know what to think. I was relieved and excited that Jimmy actually knew it, but the more I thought about it, the more angry I became. When I confronted him about why he didn't tell me sooner, he said that when his mother passed on his 18th birthday, he stopped speaking altogether and just started telling people he didn't understand it. He said that it reminds him of her, which is understandable, but I don't know if I can accept something like that. When I told my parents, my dad was overjoyed, while my mother had a panicked look on herself as she recalled all the nasty things they said about him and his family in front of them. My dad seemed to brush it off and fully understood Jimmy's reasoning for not speaking it anymore, but I don't know if I can be so forgiving. I feel like he's been secretly spying on me for the past 3 years. He lied to me about it. Even my friends, he treated everyone so kindly, even though they all at some point talked bad about him. I don't know if he's noble and romantic or if he's just been using it to his advantage. Our relationship is otherwise perfect, and it seems like such a silly minor detail to get upset over, but I don't know. Any outside perspective or input? Am I wrong for not letting this go so lightly? I think he should have told me way sooner. Now for a few important comments. One commenter said, "Your parents and friends were acting rudely. They should apologize to him and hope he's happy to forgive. As for you, you're in a relationship for 3 years yet never took an interest in how his Korean studies were going or tried to have a conversation with him to practice what he's learned." Then OP replied, "Not really. I would say little phrases here and there, and he would respond accordingly for the most part. I never actually sat down with him because, everyone says they'll learn a language someday. I didn't think he would actually stick with it. He always studied on his own time." Another commenter added, "I can understand being upset about being lied to, but I think what you're feeling is probably a lot of embarrassment about how your parents and friends acted. Sometimes people who are biracial are used to not being accepted by one or both sides of their cultures. No matter what he does, to some people, Jimmy will never be Korean enough, even though that's part of who he is. You need to understand this, because if you have kids and they look a little like him, they might be treated like Jimmy one day too." The commenter continued, "Don't you wonder how your boyfriend was able to sit through all that abuse and not say anything? And why he would still be with you after all that? If anything, he has a right to be mad and judge you for having these kinds of people in your life. But maybe he is a calm enough person to know that when people say bad things about you, it shows you more about their character than yours. Or maybe, sadly, he has seen this kind of negative and judgmental behavior before from other relatives. I suspect that this might be the case. He is used to people judging him because they've judged all his life, and he has learned to just brush it off." Then OP replied, "I'll admit a lot of my feeling is embarrassment. After that dinner, when we got back to our apartment, I looked him in the eyes and cried like a little baby. I didn't really know what to say or do, and the only thing in my mind was how shitty my friends and family were to him, and how he would face them over and over again willingly. You make good points, and I do think I'm being selfish, trying to make this about me when it should be about him or us. I want to see it in a positive way and use it to bring us closer. I guess I'm just like my parents when I say I have this small doubt in the back of my mind preventing me from doing so wholeheartedly." Now for the 1-week update. First, I want to say that I admit I was totally wrong for trying to make this about me, and I realize my parents and friends, as well as myself, were all horrible people, which I agree with. I spoke with Jimmy the same day I posted the thread. I actually invited him over to my parents' place for dinner, but before that, I stopped by his parents' house to apologize to him, his dad, and his younger sister for everything because I felt so embarrassed and horrible. I apologized profusely to his dad, who did nothing but laugh. His dad was beyond understanding and actually spoke Korean quite well himself. He actually laughed saying that he understands why my parents were the way they are. He even told me about the story of when he first met Jimmy's mom's parents in Korea and how much she warned him about their behavior. He said that she explained it to him, and he understood and was able to respect where their concerns were coming from in terms of wanting to preserve their language and heritage. He told me it started off rocky, but they shut up so fast when he surprised them and spoke it fluently. He said his relationship with her parents is now stronger than ever, especially since she passed away, and he calls them twice a week just to chat. He said that when he heard that I stuck up for Jimmy, he was proud of me even though he never said anything. Jimmy's sister, she's only 12 but is super sweet and mature for her age, said that when Jimmy started dating me, it was the day he started teaching and talking to her in Korean again. It was really precious the way she described it. His dad teaches and talks to her as well, but she really likes when Jimmy does it. As for Jimmy and I, we've been working together to resolve our communication issues, and we've spent a lot of time talking all about us. But I admitted all my concerns, and he addressed them one by one and told me exactly what I needed to hear. He apologized for keeping it from me for so long and told me that he didn't do it maliciously. He just didn't want to associate Korean with the negativity that my parents and friends brought, which I find extremely understandable. He said he regarded the language as something pure that he and his mother often shared together, that he didn't want to engage in with my parents and friends. He admitted that it probably sounded silly, but I understood him on an emotional level. He told me about how close he and his mom were. We had never talked this in depth about it before, and I cried like a little baby because I could tell how much he loved and missed her. He told me that she always teased or warned him about the complications of marrying a full-blood Korean while he was a teenager, and he didn't truly understand until he met my parents and friends. I even found out that Jimmy was born and lived in Korea for 12 years. I feel like our relationship is stronger than ever. My doubts and worries are gone, and we're going to be a lot more open with one another. I'm ashamed I ever tried to doubt him. He has been speaking Korean to me a lot more exclusively since I apologized to him. Most probably won't understand, but he took me to see his mother's grave, and it was probably one of the most touching moments I've ever had with him. I was kneeling beside him, listening as he told her about me, basically how he knew he had found the person he would make new memories with, and how he would have to go back on a promise. I don't think I've ever cried so much in my life. I couldn't even stop. We had dinner with my parents on Tuesday, and Jimmy spoke to them in Korean for the first time, and my parents apologized for their tongue. I think I didn't make it as clear as I should in my original post, but after I defended him, they cut back significantly. Jimmy apologized for their years of disappointment, teasing them for their original concerns. He told them a little about his mom, and when he told them his mother's maiden name, my father's eyes lit up. He didn't really go into detail, but he thinks he might have known of her family. It made him extremely chatty and open. I've never seen my father so excited to talk to someone before in my life. Jimmy also brought up that his family is planning a trip to Korea this summer, and he offered to pay for all of us to come with them. My parents haven't been back in years, and they happily accepted his offer. Jimmy is wonderful, really. I'm lucky to have him, and I'll never let him go. Thanks for the advice. Now for a few important comments. One commenter said, "This is all fine and good, but still, your parents and friends who talked shoot are pretty bad. Luckily, your fiancé is actually Korean enough, and we don't need to belittle him to his face. We?" In response, the original poster said, "My parents and friends are very bad for talking shoot in Korean when they thought he couldn't understand. I realize the magnitude of their actions, and I've even told Jimmy that if he wanted us, or just himself, to go low or no contact with them, then I would totally support and understand. I think my first post exaggerated the number of times they did. Then after I defended him the first time, they cut back significantly. If Jimmy is willing and able to forgive them, then I'm just going to leave it at that. No point in me forcing an issue that he doesn't seem concerned over. He's a much better person than myself for sure, because I would hold it against them. But Jimmy values family bonds quite highly, and he wants to have a relationship with my parents, and he wants me to keep a good relationship with them as well. As for my friends, I'll be cutting many of them out of my life." Then another commenter asked, "I'm sorry, but I have to ask, how is Jimmy so forgiving of your parents? It seems like they were being downright shitbags to him for absolutely no reason. Is that the custom or something? Don't speak our language, we'll just talk shoot behind your back?" The original poster replied, "I'm surprised Jimmy could forgive your parents, but he's a better man than I am. I'm just a little upset at my own culture's exclusivity/superiority complex. It's just so annoying at times." I feel the same way, and honestly, Jimmy is one of a kind, I feel like, in terms of forgiveness. But after talking to him about his mom and family, I realized that he regards family very highly and doesn't believe in cutting ties over insulting behavior. He told me that his grandparents are guilty of this superiority/exclusivity complex that my parents seem to have had. All I can say is that we'll try our best to break this cycle, at least with our direct families. And I'll teach my future kids the importance of respect, regardless of appearance or race or tongue. Am I the idiot for leaving a sinking ship run by a delusional leader who couldn't lead a parade? I joined this small tech R&D firm about 3 years ago. The boss is a former math major who started the company in his mid-20s. Initially, he had a few early successes, winning awards totaling around $13 million in the first couple of years. When I joined, there were 13 people, and the place had this weird cultish vibe. Everyone called him the leader. He was super into coaching everyone and was always giving guidance. Fine, whatever, I was skeptical, but it seemed like a good opportunity. During my final interview, he even had a human psych professor, his mentor, on the line to assess me. Weird? Yes, but okay. But as time went on, I realized the entire company was full of yes men who were enamored with this guy's wisdom. He was always reading business theory books, obsessed with writing, and basically thought academic skills mattered more than actual business skills. Every decision was based on something he read, not on intuition or experience. He wasn't a businessman. He was an academic who happened to start a business. Then, shortly after I joined, he made the lead engineer, who he had coached, into a proxy CEO while he took a back seat. Problem was, the lead engineer didn't want to lead, didn't know how to make decisions, and had to run everything by the boss anyway, who was basically AWOL. The boss was off trying to find investors, but couldn't close any deals because his negotiation skills were purely theoretical and not rooted in any real-world experience. Fast forward 2 years, and we're not winning any awards. Then one day, after a big demo, the boss lays off half the company, no warning, no heads up, because his advisor told him to just cut everyone loose. The next day, the boss took a 2-week vacation, leaving me, the lead engineer, and one senior programmer to do everything. Yep, seriously. We busted our asses and won a small award, but then the lead engineer quit. 8 years of loyalty and burnout, and when he told the boss he was leaving, the boss basically said, "Don't let the door hit you on the way out." A few months later, the senior programmer quit too. So now it's just me running the entire technical effort. There's one other person, a program manager who deals with customers but mostly comes to me for help with anything resembling actual work. She's been with the company since day one and balances the boss's complete lack of people skills. Oh, and yeah, she's definitely mentioned to me that she thinks he might be on the spectrum. For the last 6 months, I've been doing everything, seeking new business, working on current projects, trying to market and move our products, you name it, I'm doing it. Then a few weeks ago, my boss comes to me, all weepy, and says he can't assure the longevity of my job, so if I need stability, I should find something else. We talk a bit, and I say I'm still here working hard, but nothing changes in his attitude. He doesn't respect me or the two of us still here. He just keeps pushing and micromanaging. Yesterday, after a 2-hour working session, he tells me he wants to coach me. He says, "You have great ownership skills, great technical skills, great leadership skills, but you need to have better directability. I need to be able to tell you and direct you on what to do." I'm sitting there, nodding along, but in my head I'm like, seriously? There's no one left. I'm carrying this company. You aren't doing the work. Do you even know how to do the work? This guy has never worked for anyone. All his decisions come from stuff he's read, not from actual experience. Who are you to coach me when I've got 10 years of real-world grind experience? And then he goes off talking about the future success of the firm and how he needs more control of the two of us who haven't quit yet. Oh, and when the other engineers quit, the boss had an emergency meeting with me and the program manager to talk about the firm's future and vision. But it was all theoretical nonsense. He started yelling at us when we asked actual questions about concrete steps we could take. He just wanted to go on about our values rather than actually build a plan. And don't even get me started on his nonstop requests for reports. He critiques every word, analyzing them to death. I'm like, dude, we could have a 2-minute conversation and I'd answer all your questions, but nope, he needs written reports. Recently, he sent me a feedback document from one of our bids, and he's like, read this and explain it to me. Dude, it's not that complicated, just read it. Then, after I explain, he asks for more clarification and proof that I'm right. I've been here almost 3 years, doing everything, and he still doesn't trust me to understand a simple document? At this point, I'm just waiting out the interviews I'm in the later stages of because I cannot deal with this anymore. Now, for the update. So after grinding through endless micromanagement and carrying my entire department on my back, I finally accepted a new job offer. I sent my boss an email letting him know I'd be resigning, offering 2 options. I could finish my high-priority writing project, the one he kept emphasizing, and leave by mid-month. Or I could stay until the end of the month to wrap up everything, including the technical project and all the admin business stuff I'd been handling solo. My new job was starting on the 28th, so for the past week, I've been working both jobs. My new one 9-5 and the old one from 5 p.m. until midnight or later. I documented everything down to the smallest detail so he'd have all he needed. I didn't feel like I needed to spell this schedule out to him since the company always operated on flexible hours. He replied saying he was disappointed but understood, so I thought we were good. But then he called and let me know just how disappointed he was. Apparently, I was supposed to seek his blessing before leaving. The irony? When he hired me, he didn't even want to give me 2 weeks to leave my last role. He expected me to start the Monday after sending the offer on a Thursday. From the day I submitted my resignation up until my last day, my boss was mostly AWOL. I kept sending him detailed update emails, asking if he needed anything else, checking in to make sure he'd be set for the transition. But he was nowhere to be found. You'd think he'd be the most engaged at this point. This is his company, and I'm literally the last technical employee left, apart from the program manager, who he actually instructed me not to inform of my departure until the day before I left. I practically had to chase him down to ensure he was getting everything he needed. For someone who's repeatedly insisted on control and micromanaged endlessly, he was oddly disengaged and unresponsive during the only time it really mattered. So he schedules a handoff meeting for Thursday at 2 p.m., but I already have meetings for my new job. I suggest 4 p.m., and he gets upset, questioning why I'm still working if I've already quit. I clarify that I'm splitting my time for a smooth transition, and he absolutely loses it. I explain it was either this arrangement or leaving him high and dry, but he's still furious. He finally shows up for the meeting at 4 p.m., his first involvement in any of the transition He asks for a full walkthrough of everything. I had already put it all in writing, with flawless documentation reports and tutorials, but I run through it anyway. 4 hours, no breaks. Every single question answered, everything demonstrated. When we wrap up, he goes, "We might still need some guidance on things." I start to say, "For what it's worth, I never meant to," but he cuts me off, saying he's seeking counsel on how to deal with this situation, claims nobody's ever done this to him before, then vaguely threatens to figure out what he needs to report before storming off. Not sure what counsel he's getting, but I'm hoping this is just an empty threat. I'm beyond frustrated. Despite everything, I really tried to leave on good terms. I busted my butt to get every last detail done, even working long hours after quitting to make sure everything was flawless for him. I kept things professional, communicated often, and documented every project and process. I was ready to put this behind me and tried to reach out for a genuine conversation at the end, maybe even find a bit of closure. But instead, he had to make things difficult, ignoring all my efforts until the last second, then dragging me through a grueling 4-hour session. When I tried to wrap it up amicably, he shut me down with a vague threat and stormed off. He made a tough ending even worse, and it's a huge relief to finally be done with it.